This week on Quality Digest Live, taking a closer look at the Deming chain reaction within the workplace.
Plus, we'll chat with Ulysses Green of the CMSC about the group's academic outreach. That and more when we come back.
This episode of Quality Digest Live is sponsored by Olympus, specializing in easy-to-use microimaging and metrology systems that provide the measurement and images you need.
Welcome back to Quality Digest Live for October 2nd, 2015. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making the news in the world of quality. I'm Mike Richmond, publisher of Quality Digest.
And I'm Quality Digest editor-in-chief, Dirk Ducharme. Today is Manufacturing Day. That's a celebration of modern manufacturing, and it's meant to inspire the next generation of manufacturers. So if you're not familiar with it, Manufacturing Day addresses common misperceptions about manufacturing by giving manufacturers an opportunity to open their doors and show what manufacturing is really all about and what it isn't all about. So by working together during and after Manufacturing Day, manufacturers will begin to address the skilled labor shortage they face, connect with future generations like students, for instance, and take charge of the public image of manufacturing to ensure the ongoing strength of the whole industry. And you know, there is still a perception of what manufacturing is about. It's kind of our father's idea, my father's idea, Mike's father's idea of what manufacturing is, which is a dirty, grimy, low-paying, nut-spinning type of jobs. And manufacturing, it isn't that anymore. And manufacturing is trying to get the word out, and that's what Manufacturing Day is all about. It's supported by a group of industry sponsors and co-producers, and Manufacturing Day is designed to amplify the voice of individual manufacturers. Now, we know this is the last minute because Manufacturing Day is actually today,
right now.
But maybe you can, I don't know, cut work, pick up your kid.
I'm going right now. See ya. You're on your own.
Yeah, go pick up your kid and take him or her to a local participating manufacturer who has opened up their doors to the public today. And there's like 2,000 of them across the United States. If you follow the link below the player page, you can find a manufacturer near you. We have one just down the street, like 4 blocks from us, Transfer Flow.
We actually went down to see them last year, if you recall, on this day. We interviewed them about what they're doing. And yeah, pretty much anywhere you are in the country, there's 2,000. You're going to be able to find within relative proximity a manufacturer who's participating in National Manufacturing Day.
That's right.
Really good stuff. And you're right, Dirk. I mean, the perception of manufacturing is still stuck in the 1960s and before.
Manufacturing is high-tech now. I mean, it's really amazing. You walk into some of these places. So.
Yeah, and it's really a perfect career path for a lot of kids who maybe are looking to work with their hands. Maybe are like maybe they're gamers. Maybe they're technologists, budding technologists. I mean, these are really great careers for a lot of these young people. As you say, boys and girls.
Right.
Not only boys. So boys and girls, really, really great opportunities. So
check it out.
Check that out. Absolutely. Great. Thanks, Dirk. All right, well, also in the news is the recent announcement from the International Organization for Standardization that ISO 9001:2015 has now officially been published. That's right.
That's right.
The actual publication date was September 23rd, so just last week. Now, there's currently more than 1 million ISO 9001 certifications issued worldwide. Those registered organizations are now going to have up to 3 years to migrate from the previous version of the standard, ISO 9001:2008, last time the standard was updated. So as many know, the changes in this version of the standard are relatively major. Certainly they're more substantial than the adjustments made to ISO 9001. The last time it was revised 7 years ago, I mean, they kind of flip-flop. Every other revision is a more major revision. Actually, 9001:2008 wasn't really a revision. It was, I think, what they called it an update. It was not really a complete revision.
2000 was the
last real
9K,
revision.
2K was the big
one.
Yeah.
Now, and this is the next new one, next big one. And users and certification bodies have zeroed in on the new language in the standard, ISO 9001:2015, around risk-based thinking. And there remain some questions about how exactly registrars are going to audit to those relevant clauses. the language of the standard indicates that the users must determine for themselves how to appropriately address risk in their organization and be able to demonstrate such forethought and planning and documentation during an audit. So that's a really key thing, and it's something that people have misunderstood, I think, is that the standard says the organization shall determine, what how they're going to handle risk and the risk-based thinking. So essentially, an auditor is not really going to be able to come in and say, you're not doing this right, you're not doing risk right. And there's been a lot of hue and cry about this. You're going to say as an organization, here's how we handle risk, and you're going to determine it. And if you can show that you have a plan, that you know what you're doing, you're going to be fine.
Here's where I see our risk points are. Here's how we've assessed it. Here's how we're going to deal with it.
It's on you as a user. So really, you can own this one a lot. So we've published several articles, and we've hosted a number of I think, really interesting webinars as well on this very topic. And no doubt, we're going to continue to do so in the months to come. So keep your eye on us right here, Quality Digest, for continued expert insight into ISO 9001 2015. And yeah, like I say, 3 years now to transition. So that's the next thing, is now it's published. Everybody's got to begin to transition, and what that means if you're an ISO 9001 2008 registered company, how you transition over to 2015.
And you've got some time.
You got some time, but like I say, check us out. We're going to be bringing you into 2016 and forward from there. A lot more articles, a lot more webinars about that very topic.
All right. There was an excellent article this week from Barbara Cleary. Barbara is a vice president of PQ Systems. The article was Deming is talking about is what happens if we embrace the key thrust of what W. Edwards Deming was saying in his 14 points, which was respect for the worker. Most of the 14 points in some way revolve around respect for the worker. And by the way, some people think that Deming was referring to just the non-management types, but he very clearly means everyone: management, engineers, hourly wage workers, and everyone. Inspect for all employees. As Cleary points out, Gallup polls and other surveys have shown that today's employees are largely not satisfied with their jobs. They are what we call actively disengaged with their work. Just kind of like, go to the freezer, get the box, answer the phone, answer the question as quickly as possible, and hang up as quickly as possible. Next, right? And the focus is on numbers rather than on employee and customer engagement. But it is this engagement that ultimately leads to bigger and better numbers. You want this engagement. More than even money, employees want work to have meaning. If I am going to spend half my waking hours at a job, it should be something that has meaning to me. I mean, otherwise I'm just a knob-turning, key-tapping, button-pushing monkey, right?
Don't say that about yourself, Dirk. Come on, you're more than that to me.
Yeah.
Kind of.
I'm like a trained dog. Who wants that, right? I don't want to be a monkey or a dog.
No.
Dolphin, maybe.
Yes, that'd be nice.
So how do organizations help employees to find meaning in the work and to take on meaningful roles in the work of the organization? Well, Deming's chain reaction of quality from his book, Out of the Crisis, I think it's page 3 of Out of the Crisis, in fact, offers us a clue to this approach. And Cleary has taken this and kind of elaborated on a little bit. We'll show you in some slides here, that how his chain reaction ties in employee engagement in satisfaction. So first of all, improve the quality of products and services. This step will in itself begin to instill pride in workers and contribute to an organization's quality improvement. I mean, you need to look no further than Deming's point 12 from his 14 points. 12A reads, remove barriers that rob the hourly workers of their right to pride of workmanship. 12B reads, remove barriers that rob people in management and engineering of their right to pride of workmanship. So the job of leaders, says Deming, is to ensure that everybody has the tools and support they need to create a quality product, which gives pride of workmanship, which in today's parlance leads to employee engagement. So improve quality products and services. This leads to the next step in the chain, which is costs will decrease as a result of this emphasis on quality rather than quantity. This leads to productivity, which will increase as workers see meaning in their efforts. So who do you think is more productive? The employee going through the motions of their job with a whip at his back, doing just enough to keep from getting flogged, or the employee who enjoys what she is doing? Who do you think produces fewer errors? Right? Okay, so this part of the chain leads to the next, which is organizations can expand their market share by increasing productivity, which of course then leads to allowing them to stay in business, which of course means what? This will also expand the opportunities for workers by adding jobs and improving training. So if you read Deming's 14 points, you will see that each of them ties into this, this Deming chain in some way. Engaged employees have a positive impact on the bottom line. Even successful employees could see even more, successful companies could see even more success if they recognize and acted upon this idea of pride and workmanship. Less turnover, fewer absences, improved job safety records, all of these have been documented as a result of improved employee engagement and well-being. Money can't do it. Benefits can't do it. Unions, nope, they can't do it either. Slogans can't do it. Internal motivation is what does it. Cleary ends with this. This is a great quote. What in fact may provide motivation to workers is the sense that their contributions matter, that others outside themselves benefit from the work that they do, and their work indeed has meaning and order in a world that may be characterized by chaos in many respects. There you go.
Excellent. Excellent point by Barbara, you know, and
Yep.
and the other thing that struck me when I was looking at Deming's chain reaction again was that it's really not so much a chain as it is kind of a pendant, you know. I mean, it's, it really goes around and around. I mean, you know, you get to the bottom of that. You start with improved quality, and then you get to the bottom where it's like, well, you have these opportunities for improved training and more job opportunities. Well, that's going to come back to improved quality, and it's going to continue to funnel in this circle. And that's really what you're trying to do. Is the idea of continuous improvement is that, you know, you go through these steps and you go through these steps and you go through 3 steps and you keep on going. You don't ever say, we're done. You know, we've now got it down, because the minute you stop doing that is the minute you stop improving and seeking better ways to do things. And you know, employees pick up on that too. I mean, it's all part of the same fabric. This idea that you're going to improve your organization, you want to motivate your employees, and you want to have a great company. Well, all that goes together, and if you stop doing any of those pieces of that, the whole thing's going to fall apart. So, a really good piece. I mean, that was a really, really well-written article by Barbara Cleary. Got some good comments on it too. I think got 4 or 5 really salient comments on the bottom of it too. Yeah, check that out. I mean, we always encourage people to check out the comments in these articles and comment yourself. We really want to be a place where we can foster those kind of conversations. All right, well, I'm going to turn to our next story now. Now it's time for the latest installment of our CMSC Corner segment, where we chat with the leaders in the field of portable coordinate metrology. Today's guest is Ulysses Green, who holds the title of Ambassador for the Coordinate Metrology Society. And the position really is perfect for Ulysses, who knows pretty much everybody in this industry, really. And that's true. It makes sense, since he had a long career with Boeing and GKN Aerospace before his recent retirement. And that's a phrase that I put into quote marks, because if you've ever seen Ulysses, we've seen
He's not retired.
If you've ever seen Ulysses at a Coordinate Metrology Society conference, the last thing you'd ever think is, well, that looks like a retired guy. He knows everybody. He's there, and he's doing a lot. He's been active with the CMS since its inception more than 30 years ago. He's actually been the chairperson 3 times, so very, very deeply involved in this organization. He is especially skilled at outreach, specifically in the all-important nexus of industry and academia, and that's just one of the topics that we're going to be exploring with him here on this episode of CMSC Corner. So, without further ado, Ulysses, welcome to the show.
Hello, everybody.
How are you?
Hi, Deming. Hello.
Well, thanks for joining us. Well, let's start at the beginning, and I wanted to ask you, as I mentioned, you've been with the CMS for a long time. How did you actually get involved in the Coordinate Metrology Society?
Well, back in the early 1980s, the company I worked for at the time, it was McDonnell Douglas, purchased a new technology, which was a theodolite system. And since it was new to the industry, I was asked to evaluate it and see if we could actually use it in tooling quality, in which I determined we could. But without me really knowing how to use it, I was struggling, and one day my phone rang, and come to find out there was a guy on the other end from another aerospace company that was struggling. And so we started talking to one another. And pretty soon there was 3 people talking to one another. We were trying to find out the best targets to use and what type measurement system, or what we could use a particular measurement system for, because we were trying different things and sharing the success and the failures. So one day, a vendor was wise enough to suggest that, why don't you guys sit around a table and talk? And so that's what we did. So that was the early start of the CMSC. And it really became an official organization after the photogrammetry systems came online, and they also the photogrammetry system. There was a organization, ASPRS, and which had something for photogrammetrists. So they piggybacked on that, and that was the start of CMSC. So that was the beginning, and that brings us up to where we are today.
Yeah, that's more than 30 years ago. I mean, technology certainly has changed a lot. And you know, another thing that's really changed is the development of academia within this space. We mentioned academic organizations, institutions in our opening, and clearly there's a really strong relationship between those institutions of higher learning and industry. It's mutually beneficial. So what do you see as the key way in which these two groups can really help each other?
Well, I think what's happened is one of my assignments as an ambassador was to come along and try to find the next generation of metrologists, which is the hardest task of all. So what I've done through the years is I've tried to contact the universities where we'd have our conference and bring students down to see the hardware and software. CMS would pick up the tab. It was no limit to how many people or students they could come, and that's what we wanted them to do. The vendors were informed ahead of time that when students come through, I want them to be able to touch equipment, try to use it, and spend some time and explaining to them how it works. And so we tried that approach. But one of the big problems is that the conference is still in the month of July, and schools aren't in during the month of July, so it generates a big problem. So one of the things is we would like the colleges to try to create classes that have some metrology criteria in them, and we found out that doesn't happen. We need to have vendors to support colleges and provide them with software, and maybe even go through time to time and set up demos to show students what's out there and what's available. And we've had vendors to provide and give software to institutions, and so they can get a chance to use it, and they just have to provide maybe pay a small fee for updates. And also industry. I know McDonnell Douglas and Boeing, we donated hardware to universities, access hardware to universities, so they'll have something trained with to introduce students to what we're doing. It's a tall task, but something that needs to be done.
And how does the Ametek grant that CMSC recently got? How's this grant? This is a government grant, I believe. How does this play into all this?
Well, let me back up a little bit. Some years back, CMSC, that's what we call it at the time, used to have what they call a future uses committee. And we would sit around at the conference and determine what's the next step. Where should we be going from there? And so the Ametek group really is the next step in that, much bigger than that. It would allow industry, academia, and the vendors to get together and come up with common goals on which direction we should head. They will also always have a roadmap of which direction we're going, so everybody's on the same page, which is really great. And hopefully we'll have some positive come out of that. I know I worked with one company, and we would produce over 100,000 machine parts annually. And I guarantee you there's a better way to do it than what we were doing it. But it continues to be done that way. So now we have an academia and vendors and manufacturing or industry all on the same page and with a roadmap of where we should start and where we should end up. That's going to really be great. And I'm looking forward to see what's going to happen. But it has to be good, no doubt.
Finally, Ulysses, before we let you go, I know you've been one of the real key early supporters of the Coordinated Metrology Society certification program. So maybe you can give us a quick recap. Why is it so important to have a CMS-validated personnel certification program available to industry?
Well, I'll tell you from experience. Worked in quality in the aerospace industry. We've had hundreds of people take the same training, use the same equipment, on the same task, and we get different results. Everybody's not the same. You have to make sure that people know what they're doing. And that's really critical to this stuff being successful. You need that. It's really important. It's long overdue. And for, it's different, even smaller companies. You got somebody coming in that's going to try to do a job for you, and you know nothing about them. And so they need help, and that's what we should be doing, is trying to provide them with help and make sure that who they hire is credible and in fact knows exactly how to use that equipment.
Well, Ulysses Green, thank you for joining us today in this segment of CMSC Corner. Could talk to you for a long time about a lot of these topics, but always good to check in with you, sir. Thank you for being with us today. We'll see you down the road.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Ulysses. Talk to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay. Well, let's talk about email. We all use it, right? We send instructions to coworkers. We respond to, requests for quotations. The first thing we do in the morning, right, is we crack open our email and we spend the next 45 minutes, hour and a half going through our email and sending off dozens of emails to coworkers with instructions or responding to our boss for requests for information and so forth. So, and we do this in a matter of minutes. It's a mass amount of communication that we do very quickly. So this is obviously something that is great, right? It's great for business. Well, according to our next guest, maybe not. Kelley Graves, one of our Quality Digest columnists, actually believes that in many cases email is ruining business. So with us right now is Kelley Graves. Kelley, thanks for joining us today.
Good morning. Thank you for introducing me. And upsetting a lot of our people who think, wait a minute, email's the greatest thing in the world,
okay,
right?
You say it's ruining. So what do you mean it's ruining business?
Okay. People are confusing speed and efficiency with clarity and understanding. Okay, so like you said, you get to work in the morning and you spend an hour and a half going through emails. And people don't give those sometimes the time necessary. And so what I run into in the executive meetings is I'll have CEOs who are getting 200 emails a day, 250, and that brings a lot of challenges that I won't go into here. But basically, we're getting overloaded with information. And as a result of that, people don't read the whole email, they guess. Or we have employees that are sending just in case. I'm just going to cover myself. So I'm sending, I'm CCing, and executives are like, man, I don't have time to go through this stuff. Boom, 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 boom. And so important information gets lost in the chatter. It's just like, on Google, there's so much chatter. I'm sending people thank you notes by regular mail just because it's so different now because there's so much noise, right? Were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to, what I was going to say is that, what's a better way than that? I mean, I use email. I'm a guy who probably gets 150, 200 emails a day. I mean, I use email a lot. And I'm probably contributing to that by sending another 100 emails a day.
Yes, you do.
To various people. I copy a lot of people. Dirk will tell you. Dirk sometimes will get copied on something. He's like, why am I copied on this? Well, I thought you might want to know just in case. And he's like, no, I don't include me. So what's a better way is really the question.
Okay. Realistically, people need to, one, be careful of what they send and say, okay, is it important? So first off, what's the priority? Is this a priority A, B, or C? Or is it high, medium, low? And state that clearly. If this
like right at the top.
Yeah. Yeah, this is, and you might have to talk about this with other people in your organization. Hey, let's put some protocols with our email, because it's still the Wild West, right? So first thing, this is high, medium, or low, or when you get a chance, because there's an executive that I know that'll 2 o'clock in the morning, he's sending out emails to people, just information. This is great, and the lower executives are going, do I look at it? Don't I look at it? Do I file it? Do I respond? Yeah.
Right.
And they're just overloaded, so they don't have time. So first off, high priority, medium, low, or, so
maybe even the subject line.
Yeah.
In the subject line.
Okay. And then second thing is state your need. I need this, and if you do, what's the date and the time? When you start putting days and times to things, it clarifies for people. This is something I need to handle in 2 hours, 2 weeks, or 2 months. Okay.
And I think another thing that you touched on in your article is that tone isn't communicated in email, and usually if people are going to err on one side of what tone they tend to interpret into an email, it's negative. I mean, I see that a lot. Is people will get an email and they'll read it and they'll say, well, he's sure being snotty, or she's sure being snotty, when that may not have been the case at all. And it's just a case of not being careful on how things are worded so that the tone is somehow conveyed in words and not assumed, right? I mean, do you see that a lot?
All the time. In fact, I run into problems in executive meetings where we've dissected or debriefed what's happened in the last 6 months between the 7 of you. And invariably, it's miscommunication. And much of it is, you sent me an email 6 months ago, and it was just that. I interpreted it this way. And so perception is reality. So if you and I had a little tiff the other day because you wanted something and I wanted something else in the meeting and you got it, I'm going to misinterpret the words you use because I'm not there to clarify. So I think, in a nutshell, since we only have a couple of minutes left, is the higher priority it is, you might want to take the extra 15 minutes and go talk to that person or pick up the phone rather than the 15 seconds and send them an email. So I'm saying email is great, but there needs to be some rules established for your organization, and especially at the higher levels. If you're a CEO or VP or executive level, those are conversations that need to be handled. Most of those decisions, we need to discuss those because it's not black and white. And then also to confirm, because there are many times that people will send an email, the supervisor will send it back, but it's not clarified. I want you to do X, Y, and Z, or I want you to do it, but they don't realize that, okay, you've given me 10 priorities and I only have time to do 5 priorities. And that's hard to relay in an email.
Right. Well, you said something, is confirmation is, and I think you even gave an example, is your boss tells you to do something or makes a suggestion or tells you to do something,
right,
and that you should respond saying, okay, I've got it. At 3 o'clock, you want me to call Acme Incorporated to confirm their contract. In other words, basically, what we're supposed to do in conversation 2 is kind of parrot back to them what they've told us, to confirm that we actually understood and are going to act on what they've said, as opposed to just assuming that the boss knows I'm going to jump on it, right?
Yeah, that's very important to confirm. But let's go back to my previous example. Let's say that I have 5 priorities and the CEO just sent me another priority, and he says, I want you to do this by 3 o'clock. You have to, as the employee, you're going, God, what do I do? Because this vice president told me to do this vice president told me to do that, and the CEO told me to do this. And those are 5 things, or there's 3 things, and I have time to do 1. Okay, so that's where you have to send an email back and say, these are my other priorities. Which one do you want me to drop?
Yeah.
And that's where some employees can be fearful, going back to what Deming was talking about. If you don't have faith and trust in your organization, then the people are going to say, I'm guessing, or I'm not going to question him, I'm going to do what he says, and whoever is going to whip me the most, that's the one I'm going to please, because I can put up with Jan, because she's not going to make me pay a big price, but John, he's going to make me pay a price. So that's the one I'm following, and that may not be the priority that the organization needs.
Well, yeah, and when you say John's going to make me pay a price, Jan's not, well, maybe the price that Jan makes you pay personally isn't very high, but maybe the price of the organization is very high. Maybe Jan's project is really the priority over John's, but the squeaky wheel gets the grease, so that's how it works. But you know, you have this top level of oversight, of organization, of structure, to determine how we're going to organize and allot out the work and structure it is really important. And it's what gets lost in an email. Like I say, it's all the same. It just piles up like snowflakes, and people are like, well, I'm going to deal with whatever I can deal with. In order comes in, or whoever's more angry, and maybe that's not the way it should be dealt with.
Well, most things in organizations aren't. Remember, when we're having a conversation, we need to prioritize how we're going to do it, who's going to do it, and when. And when you start putting dates on something, instead of saying, I want it done by mid-July, no. Even if it needs to be done by mid-July, say July 15th at 5 o'clock.
That's it.
Because invariably somebody's going to say, well, Jan's going to be on vacation that week, so either it needs to come in on the 20th or on the 10th. And so that starts clarifying things. And that's what needs to be interacted. And we need to have some rules in our communication, just basic, because the pendulum has swung so far into speed and efficiency rather than clarity and understanding and decision making.
Well, Kelley, once again, some useful information on communication. And if you are interested in some in-depth discussion on communication. There is a webinar next week with Kelley. The webinar is called Grow Profit Through Better Employee Management. This is an interactive webinar. In other words, we want you to tell us what your most pressing need is, management need is at your company, and we will actually address that need specifically on the show. There's a little survey you'd fill out, and that will help us actually kind of formulate the show that's going to be next Tuesday, October 6th at 11 a.m. Pacific. 2 p.m. Eastern with Kelley. So there's a link to it actually below the player page. You can link out there and sign up for the webinar. And so we hope to see you there. By the way, this is a paid webinar, but it's inexpensive. So go ahead and sign up for it.
Check that one out. Thanks, Kelley. We're going to see you on Tuesday.
All right, thank you.
And we'll be talking about that. All right. Well, that's our show. But before we go, we'd like to offer our thanks to this week's sponsor, Olympus. Discover another dimension in microimaging and metrology with test, measurement, inspection, and imaging instruments designed for high precision quality control and R&D. Olympus engineered solutions and enhance quality and productivity in industrial markets around the world. So for more information, click on the banner ad just below or just to the right of this video player screen.
That's right. Well, once again, thank you for joining us for another news-filled, and by the way, Manufacturing Day, so cut work, grab your kid, go visit a local manufacturer.
Right now. You're excused.
You're excused.
Show's over, you're excused.
That's right. And once again, you know, if you've got management issues at your company, check out the webinar that we got going next week. Like I said, the link to it is right below the player page. So, once again, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week.
That's right. Have a great weekend.
So long.
Bye.
Bye.
Fire!